Hello everyone, it's me Sanjay Vasu back again for another video. This time I'm doing it on Cambridge Lower Secondary Checkpoint for Science Paper 2 October 2021. Let's start. Question 1. This question is about cells, tissues and organs in plants and animals. A. Complete the table. Tick the box that describes each part. So part of plant, the leaf, it is an organ. The palisade mesophyll is a tissue. Well, we know there's cells called palisade mesophyll cells, but then a group of these cells form a tissue. That's why it's a tissue. Root hair, yeah, that's a cell. B, complete the table. Tick the box that describes each part. Now we have part of animals. Sperm is a cell, the male reproductive cell. The stomach is an organ. And what about the heart? Also an organ. That's the answer. Question 2. This question is about elements and compounds. A. Match the name of the element to its correct chemical symbol. Beryllium is Be and boron is B. Br is not one of the two. It is actually bromine. B. Look at the formula of this compound. NaCl, also known as sodium chloride or common salt. The compound contains two elements. One element is chlorine. Write down the name of the other element. So as I said, this is sodium chloride, right? Which means it contains sodium and chlorine. So the other element is sodium. Yeah, as I said again, it's common salt. So sodium is the answer. See, look at the formula of this compound. What type of compound is CaO, or calcium oxide? Circle the correct answer. Well, as you know, CaO is calcium oxide. It is, well, an oxide. So that's the answer. Question 3. This question is about energy transfer processes. A. Draw a line from each method of energy transfer to its example. So the method of energy transfer, radiation, the answer is the way energy from the sun reaches the earth. Because energy travels through a vacuum and only radiation can do that. And now for convection, the way the air above a heater becomes warm. Because convection is a cycle. So the thermal energy goes up, comes back down due to the density of the molecules changing due to thermal energy supply. That's why the air above a heater becomes warm. B. The diagram shows the copper rod being heated. Explain how heat is transferred through the copper rod. Use ideas about particles in your answer. Well, how heat is transferred through the copper rod is by conduction. So I wrote conduction process. And then we just explain it. As some particles of the copper rod start vibrating due to thermal energy supply, or in this case, the Bunsen burner, other particles next to them get hit and also start vibrating. So let's say there's particle here, and like that for the full metal rod. So let's say the Bunsen burner gives energy to these two first particles. Now they start vibrating quite a lot, and then the vibration causes this one to vibrate as well, and then that one causes this. It goes like that until it goes through the full copper rod. That means it is having higher amount of kinetic and thermal energy. So that's how you write the answer. Question 4. Weeds reduce the growth of crops. Rajiv is testing a new weed killer to reduce the number of weeds. He wants to find the correct concentration of weed killer to kill weed seedlings. He uses cotton wool soaked in weed killer solution. The cotton wool is placed in a dish containing some weed seedlings. Rajiv does 5 experiments using the setup here. In each one, he uses a different concentration of weed killer solution. And why concentration? Because the solution is having weed killer plus water. A. One variable he changes in each experiment. So that will be the strength or the concentration of the weed killer. Part 2. State 2 variables he controls in each experiment. First of all, the number of weeds, because if you have a different number of weeds, it could be biased. And the second one, type of weed killer. Obviously, he's only testing one new weed killer, but what if he accidentally mixes it up and gets another one? So you have to be careful to use the same kind of weed killer, otherwise it could give anomalous results. 3. State two variables he measures in each experiment. So he's testing the best concentration of weed killer to kill weed seedlings, which means he needs to measure the number of seedlings which are killed by the weed killer. And the second one is time of exposure to the weed killer. Because if you expose, let's say, high concentration, a low time, like a low amount of time, let's say 1 minute, and then a low concentration to the time of like 5 minutes, which is much higher, right? 5 times the time. So it might actually be the same effectiveness because of the inversely proportional time and concentration. So we need to make sure that the time is measured, and only then we will be able to give fair conclusions. B. Suggest why Rajib washes his hands after handling the cotton wool soaked in weed killer. Since there's a new weed killer, he might not actually know whether this one is safe for touching with normal hands, like bare hands, or you have to wear gloves, right? So if he's touching it with his hands, he needs to wash it thoroughly, even if he's using gloves as a precaution. He has to wash it thoroughly so that the weed killer does not affect him, even if it does or not, because he doesn't know, right? So in case it does, so the weed killer may be harmful to his hands. That's a simple answer. Question 5. Priya has two magnets, a bar magnet and a horseshoe magnet. A. Priya dips the bar magnet into iron filings. Where will most of the iron filings stick to the magnet? Answer is, of course, on the poles. And explain the answer is because simply a magnetic field is strongest at the poles, so most of them will stick here. B. Look at the horseshoe magnet. Put an X on the diagram to show where the magnetic field is strongest. The X can actually be placed anywhere in this area over here, on the poles or in between the poles, like the part which I've done here. Any one of these answers, or even if you put here, it's still correct. Somewhere in between or somewhere on the poles. That's the answer. Part C. Which pattern shows the magnetic field lines of a barred magnet? Choose from A, B, C, or D. The answer is C, because the magnetic field goes outwards from the north and goes around the bar magnet and comes in at the south. That's why these arrows are there, right? Outwards from the north and comes back into the south. That's the answer. Let's go to question 6. Carlos investigates the pH of some liquids. Some of the liquids are very acidic and some are very alkaline. A. Describe how Carlos measures the pH of the liquids. Well, the answer is simply adding a few drops of universal indicator or pH meter, like using a pH meter. It's a kind of equipment used for measuring pH. So adding a few drops of universal indicator to each liquid or putting the liquid in a pH meter. Also, you can use universal indicator paper instead, but it's pretty much the same thing. So yeah, that's the answer. B. Some of the liquids are dangerous to use. Write one safety precaution Carlos takes during his investigation. I've written wear safety gloves, but there's not the only answer. It could be like safety glasses, for example. Because for pretty much the same reason though, explain why this safety precaution is needed is pretty much to make sure corrosive liquids do not affect any body parts. In this case, because I've written safety gloves, so to make sure corrosive liquids do not affect his hands if he spills them. If you wrote, for example, safety glasses, you have to change the reason a bit, but to make sure corrosive liquids or irritant liquids do not affect his eyes if liquid spits, right? That's the reason for using safety glasses. And yeah, that's the answer. Question 7. Mike owns a group of sheep that he uses to produce wool. He wants to increase the amount of wool his sheep produce. He mates his female sheep with a different variety of male sheep. A. What term describes this way of producing a new variety of sheep? The answer is simply selective breeding. B. The diagram shows Mike's female sheep and three different varieties of male sheep. Which one of the three varieties of male sheep should Mike mate with his female sheep to increase the amount of wool in the sheep produced? Give a reason for your answer. We can see out of the three sheep, the male C has the most amount of wool over here and over here, right? So variety C, since this variety has the most wool, so that's simply the answer. Let's go to question 8. Look at the model of a carbon atom. A. Write down the name of particle X, which is this. They are actually electrons which orbit the nucleus, which is over here. And particle Y is a neutron. It has neutral charge and it's present in the nucleus also. B. Circle the name of the scientist who suggested a model for an atom. So I'll give you a bit of timeline information. First, it's John Dalton, who actually discovered the presence of electrons or a negative charge. And then it's J.J. Thomson, who discovered the fact that there's also a positive charge and made the plum pudding model. And then it's Ernest Rutherford, who discovered that electrons are not scattered, they are in a fixed motion like this, circular motion. And Niels Bohr, who discovered this model of the atom with the nucleus over here and the electrons orbiting in shells. So out of these four names, which one is over here? It's Rutherford. So the answer is Rutherford. C. The diagram shows part of the periodic table. 1. Complete the sentence. Carbons in period dash of the periodic table. Carbon is the sixth element, which is having the symbol C. The periods are the rows. So the period 1 is here, 2 is there, 3 is there, 4 is there. So this row or this period 2, contains carbon over there. So carbon's in period 2. Part 2, circle the element which has similar chemical properties to carbon. Well, elements in the same group or in the same column usually have the same kind of properties. And by properties, it's only chemical properties. Physical might not always be the same. But well, similar chemical properties to carbon. In the same group of carbon, there is 14Si or silicon actually, but since we're given the atomic symbol instead of the word, we should just circle the symbol. That's the answer. Question 9. Look at the diagrams of some sound waves. You can use each letter once, more than once, or not at all. A. Which wave has the highest frequency? That means it has the most number of waves in the same length of wave. So that would be C. It has 4 waves in the diagram. This one has 2, this one has 2, and this one has 1. So this is the highest, C. B. Which wave shows the quietest sound? That is the lowest height or amplitude, which is actually B. C. Which wave shows the lowest pitch? That means the lowest frequency, and that would be D because it has only one wavelength. And D. Which two waves have the same amplitude? That'll be the same height of the wave, which is simply C and D. They have the same amplitude. You can use a ruler and just draw a line, or just keep the ruler like this. You see that this height is the same and the bottom height is also the same. If you put your ruler like that, it'll form a horizontal line. That's the answer. Question 10. During breathing, the air passes into the alveoli or the air sacs of the lungs and is then released back into the atmosphere. Look at the table. It shows the composition of inhaled air, the air we breathe in, and exhaled air, or the air we breathe out. So the gas, percentage in inhaled air and percentage exhaled air for carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and other gases, and oxygen is shown here. A. Describe the differences between the composition of inhaled air and exhaled air. It's actually quite simple. You don't have to really explain much, it's just to say what difference is there. The difference is that inhaled air has less carbon dioxide. We can see that 0.04 in inhaled air and 4% in exhaled air. And also it has more oxygen than exhaled air, because in inhaled air is 20% and exhaled it's 16%. That's all. That's the answer. B. Explain what happens in the alveoli to cause these differences between inhaled and exhaled air. So actually, oxygen diffuses into the alveoli so that it'll go into the blood, and the heart can pump that oxygenated blood, spelled like this, oxygenated blood, to the rest of the body parts so they can use the oxygen. So that's why the alveoli are present. It's to do this function. So oxygen diffuses into the alveoli from the inhaled air, and that's why inhaled air has more oxygen than exhaled air. And then carbon dioxide diffuses out of the alveoli to the exhaled air. That's another reason why alveoli are present, because carbon dioxide, if it collects in the body, it'll be a toxic gas to the body. So that's why we need to make sure it is removed immediately. That's the alveoli's purpose again. C. The air enters the human respiratory system through the nose and nasal cavity. Write down two other parts that inhaled air moves through before it reaches the alveoli. So first it goes through the nose and nasal cavity, and then it goes to the windpipe, or you can call it the trachea. That's another scientific name for that. And then after it goes to the windpipe, then it goes to the bronchi, which is simply parts of the lungs, which actually are the two main stems of the two lungs. So let's say these are the two lungs. I'm not the best at drawing, but still I just say that these are two lungs, right lung and left lung. So these two tubes which extend from the windpipe over here, windpipe or the trachea, these two tubes over here are the bronchi. And also you can write bronchioles because they are the small tubes which extend from these two big tubes. If you see here, then inside the lung, let's say I'll take the left lung only, so it'll extend into smaller tubes, somewhat like roots, it'll extend like that. It'll go around all the way around the lungs from the bronchi, and even the smaller tubes will go into even smaller tubes like that. It'll start branching out, and at the end of these bronchioles there will be alveoli. That's the function of bronchi and bronchioles. So the answer can be windpipe and bronchi, or you can write bronchioles also. That's the answer. Question 11. The table describes the reaction of some metals with cold dilute acid and cold water. The table shows all of them. Use information from the table to answer these questions. A. Explain how you can tell that magnesium reacts faster with cold dilute acid than with cold water. So magnesium will produce more bubbles in a reaction with cold dilute acid than with cold water. That's how you can tell, because visually it's not easy to say unless you actually notice or observe things which are happening inside the reaction. So magnesium will produce more bubbles, and that's how you can tell. Even though yes, it's given here that reaction with cold dilute acid, it's rapid, cold water extremely so. How do you know that? This is the answer. B. Suggest the name of metal X. Metal X has extremely less reaction, right? And in the reactivity series, we need to find something that reacts very slowly but does not have no reaction, With cold dilute acid, it does react, but very slowly, right? And also, it has to be higher than copper and gold because they have no reaction for cold dilute acid. So, it can be also below magnesium, right? So, it can be zinc, iron, which I've written there, tin, or lead. These four are the possible answers. C. Potassium reacts with cold water to make a colorless gas and alkaline solution. Write the name of the colorless gas, that's actually hydrogen, and the alkaline solution, which is potassium hydroxide actually. So let's just write this in the chemical equation to explain. It'll be K plus H2O because potassium plus water. So that'll make, let's take out one H from H2O. So that'll be just HO, right? So you can add that to the K. KOH, right? That'll be there. and there's still one hydrogen left because there's two in the start, so that will be H. Actually, you have to double all of these because hydrogen's a double or diatomic gas, and that's why this is actually the chemical reaction. This is potassium hydroxide, this is hydrogen gas. That's the answer. Question 12. Complete the table to show the color each object appears in different colors of light. Color of light is white and color of object is red. Since the color of light is white, it won't affect the color of the object, so it appears red. The color of light and the color of object are green. That obviously means the color the object appears is simply green. Color of light is blue and color of object is red. Well, these two are different colors and none of them is white, right? So the object appears black. Only a blue color of the object or a white color of the object will show blue. Other than that, all will be black. That's the answer. Question 13. Blessey uses pure white light to produce a spectrum of colors. A. What's the name of the process that splits white light into a spectrum of colors? That will simply be dispersion. That's the only answer. B. Write down the name of equipment X. This is simply a prism. Question 14. Look at the list of energy sources. Take the two renewable energy sources. Out of coal, hydroelectric, oil, natural gas, and solar, it's only hydroelectric and solar because renewable energy resources means sources which do not end, because hydroelectric means using the force of water to create electricity. You can't remove all the water from earth, so that'll always be there. And solar, you can't just remove the sun right now, right? So solar energy will always be available. So they are renewable energy. The rest of them, coal, oil, natural gas, are fossil fuels or non-renewable energy resources. If we use them too much, that means they will completely disappear or they will be extinguished and we will not be able to use it anymore. That's why these two are renewable. And with that, I come to the end of the paper. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel, share this video with your friends and family, and comment on how you think this video was. With that, it's me, Sanjay Vasu, signing out. Thank you. Bye.